This is every public speaker's challenge to speak to a whole room full of 10th graders at 7th period on a Friday afternoon. So I recognize the bar is high and the challenge is daunting, but I will do my best to rise to the challenge and try to occupy you at least for 30 or 40 minutes before what I know will be a wonderful Friday evening in the football field or wherever you're going. My name is Jon Jenkins. It's been a long time since I remember these Friday nights. I was a high school student at your age the last time in 1975. That's ancient history, I know. But some things are universal, some things are eternal, and being a high school student, I think, is one of those that we remember long into our adulthood. I'm actually, I was the executive director. We'll talk a little bit about that in a minute at Kayla Nickel, which is the Fort Wayne's branch of the Y down in Bluffton. But 2 weeks ago, I became our association's director of facilities and properties. So we'll talk a little bit about how that happened and what that means in nonprofit. But today, in large, I'm going to talk to you about nonprofit management and what I do in that world, and what that looks like, and what maybe that could mean for you in your future. Before we talk about specifics about nonprofit management, thank you. What is a nonprofit? What do we mean when we talk nonprofit? How does that differ than other companies or other corporations? Well, maybe one of the better ways is to just describe this instrument in my pocket. You know this probably as an iPhone or smartphone, right? It's made by the Apple Corporation. That's a for-profit company, right? So when I go into the Apple store and I want to buy the latest, what is it, the i8 coming out this fall, I think, right? And I say to them, I want to buy an Apple i8 or whatever it is, what do they ask? Do they ask me if I'm married or single? Do they ask me if do they ask me my employment level or my salary level? Do they ask me if I've just been in a major crisis in life? Do they ask me if I've been battling disease? What do they ask me? What color do you want? And do you have the money to pay, right? Exactly, because at the end of the day, all those things about me are irrelevant. Anything about my life or my world is irrelevant. All they want to know is, can I pay for the phone? And at the end of the day, the reason that transaction happens is so that Apple can make a profit. That means that they can make more for the phone than it costs them to make it. And what do they do with that profit? Anybody know? What do they do with the extra money? Because it takes them X number of dollars to make the phone, and I buy it at X number of dollars, and the dollars that I spend is more than the dollars they made to make it. So what do they do with that extra money? Yeah, they put it in their wallet. Whose wallet? Who is Apple? Who is Apple when you think about it? Huh? Steve Jobs? Is that all that Apple is? Apple is thousands of Apple employees plus millions of investors. People like probably the Teachers Association of Indiana that probably has stock invested in Apple. I bet these guys may own Apple stock indirectly, because people like unions and investment companies all invest in Apple. What does that mean? They give Apple money, right? Apple then takes that money, makes these amazing products, makes a profit with them, and turns part of that profit back to those investors. And they make retirement money on that. They make all kinds of returns for that investment so they can make more. Well, a nonprofit does something a little different. Yes, they may be a business. Yes, they may be an organization. But they're not in it to make a profit. At the end of the day, making a profit is not what we're about. Making a difference is what we're about. Transforming lives. Now, Apple transforms lives. Make no mistake about it. Your life and mine has been transformed by Apple, all right? Right? A lot of technological advances have changed our lives, but what we're in the business to do, what we're organized to do, is to transform people's lives in a positive way that may be a little less easy to measure, but that can be seen in quality of life kinds of things. So I've just given you a little brief definition of what a nonprofit is. It's an organization often dedicated to furthering a particular social cause. So for us, health is a huge part of what the YMCA does. But we're going to show you a whole list of nonprofits that have specific causes in mind. Someone has a passion. Some group of people have a passion to make life better for a certain group of people or help in a certain crisis situation. And they gather together, they band together to advocate for that or to make a difference. They're an organization that uses their surplus revenues not to return it to their investors, but to return it into their organization, to build bigger housing capacity, to have better equipment, whatever it is that they might be. So that's what a nonprofit does versus a profit company. But what then is a nonprofit, or excuse me, who are they first? Let's talk about that before we go on to what a nonprofit manager does. Who are they? I've given you just a small list of the hundreds of nonprofits across our country. Many of them huge, many more small. So from multinational corporations, the YMCA is a global company. Red Cross has a global effort. Habitat for Humanity has organizations all across the globe. You can see, and some are very local. The Wells County Foundation. It's a group of people here in Wells County that bring money into their organization from people's trusts or from wills or from people who just donate and then distribute it to people like the Y who need it to help, let's say, with the special needs community, whatever that might be. But you can see a number of them. MakeAWish Foundation. Anybody ever hear of that organization? What do they do, sir? What's your name?
Ethan.
Ethan, what does the MakeAWish Foundation do?
They raise money for kids with disabilities.
Absolutely. Not only kids with disabilities, but oftentimes kids who have a terminal disease, whose life may not even reach your age, and they have a wish, they have a desire, let's say, to go to Disneyland, something like that, right? So it's not something that you can pay for by yourself, and so they gather a foundation to help. World Vision, Teach for America, places where they have a hard time finding teachers, that organization puts teachers into inner cities. It goes on and on and on. Not only to human need, but also animal need. The ASPCA, what is that? You know, the American Society for what? The prevention to, what's the CA? It's an animal society, so it's prevention to cruelty to animals, all right? The ASPCA, the Humane Society, a nonprofit, they're organized to help animals. Can the animals pay them back? Can the animals pay for those services, right? There's no money changing hands between the cats and dogs and the people, right? Right? So someone has to raise money, someone has to be organized, someone has to find ways to serve those animals who can't pay them for the services they did, and that's why they're a nonprofit. There's no profit in helping animals. You just do so because it's a passion of your heart. You do so because it's something that makes your heart feel good at the end of the day. All right? So there's thousands of them, and I just gave you a small snippet of it. But what does a nonprofit manager do? And as I've said to recent classes, I stole this from the internet, so thank technology, I plagiarized this. I should give credit to whoever this is. I apologize I didn't do so. But this is not my definition, so I at least have to make that disclaimer. All right, a manager, 5 things that I think a manager does. I resonate with this, and so that's the reason I found it and share it with you today. I am a nonprofit manager. I'll talk a little bit about what I do particularly, especially as the executive director and now the director of facilities and properties. But what does a nonprofit manager do in large? By and large, she does, I think, 5 things, or she does 5 things. 1, sets objectives. Still have enough brain power this afternoon to give a definition? Who knows what an objective is? What are we talking about when we say objectives? A goal, absolutely. Simple word, isn't it? A goal. Right? We're working towards a common goal, working towards a common purpose. That's what a manager does. So if you like to reach goals, if you're a goal setter, any goal setters in this room? Anybody have a goal? Anybody have something you want to reach in 3 years, 5 years, right? You may find yourself being comfortable with being a manager. Being able to set objectives for your team, for yourself, right? Then you organize. Who's got the most organized room in the room? If I came into you right there, if I came into your room, everything would be in its place and everything right there. You're a future manager right here. What's your name? Dakota. I will look forward to you managing some organization at some point in time. Yes, indeed. Managers love organization. They're not OCD about it, but they love to make sure that everybody knows their place. Everybody can find the things they need. Everybody has the right communication that they need. Their customers know what's going on. Their clients know what's going on. They organize. They divide the work. And then they motivate. Who among you would say, in my group of friends and my peers, I'm the one, when I have an idea, all my friends say, yeah, let's go do that idea. You right there? No? Who is this back there? Right there? Right there with that big smile. Yes, right there with this. Smiling people usually have the ideas that everybody else says, let's go do that, right? What's your name? Megan. Megan, you're going to be a manager someday, I'm sure of it. You people, they love to organize, they love to manage, they love to inspire, they love to motivate, and they communicate. They love to talk. You love to talk? Yeah, most sophomores do for the most part, right? We communicate. We talk about our world. We have to work out problems. We have to solve problems, and we have to talk about those. I'll tell you about one I had just 5 minutes ago. We measure things. We may not be math majors or math geeks, but we do like data. We like numbers, right? You like numbers? Yeah, okay, all right. We like to see where the needle is going. We like to see improvement. We like to see demographic information. We like to see, are we moving anything forward? Are we going anywhere? Data, we measure things, we analyze, we appraise, we interpret. Okay? Excuse me. And then we develop people. And I've said this, I don't think I said this to any Mrs. Tucker's classes this morning. But by and large, and here's a secret. Can everybody keep a secret? Okay. No, you can't keep a secret. You close your ears then just a second. By and large, nonprofit managers are not the smartest people in the room. Okay? By and large, we're not the brightest bulbs, we're not the sharpest crayons, we're not basically the people that got 1,300 on their SATs, we're not the people that got 4.0s in their classrooms, we're not the honor students, not by and large. Now some of us are, God bless them, but oftentimes those people, those high-achieving, high-functioning, smart, brilliant people are your Apple engineers that are making these amazing products. They're your brain surgeons. They're your engineers that are creating the planet how to bridge a river, those kind of incredible mind-bending things that they do today. But by and large, nonprofit managers love people. They love people and they love to develop people. They like to see people do well. They like to see people get better. They like to see people improve. If you love people, nonprofit, whether it's in education, whether it's what I'm doing at the Y, whether it's in any of those many, many different nonprofits, if you love people, you love to develop people, not only may you be a good manager, but you also may be a great person who finds themselves working in a nonprofit. If you don't like people, let's see, what's a good occupation? I know, how about just research scientist? Just lock yourself away with a microscope and you'll be good. But if you like people, this might be for you, okay? So, a manager, a nonprofit manager is a blend of leader, coach. I've done a lot of coaching, so what I do in nonprofit connects, crosses over very well. Project leader, team developer, and even team member. And so let me say this, to be a good team leader, to be a good manager, you ought to be a good follower. Before giving orders, you ought to be good at taking orders, right? You ought to be able to say yes before you say do. So managing requires also a great amount of humility. So remind yourself of that when you're working there. Specific duties. We'll talk a little bit about what I do, because I see that's on your paper. And I don't think I did this very well in the last couple of classes, so I apologize about this. But what do I do specifically? And in general, the executive director do these 4 things on the board that managers don't do. We work with boards. Your school system's developed that way. Your school system has the teachers in the classroom, and then you have your principal over this entire building, and then over him is Dr. Mills, the superintendent of the whole system, and then Dr. Mills works with the board, right? And so he would be an executive, Dr. Mills. And all of us who are executives either work with an elected board, like high level like Dr. Mills, or something like I have as a volunteer board, but we work with boards. People who advise us, people who direct us, people who guide us. We collaborate. It's my word of the day. Who can tell me what it means? Collaborate. What's that? Work together. I think this is your smartest group, right? I think I'm getting it right? Yeah. Yeah. Remember humility? We talked about that. Collaborate. So, young lady in the green, black, pink t-shirt. What's your name?
Sari.
Sari. All right, Sari. Collaboration develops what I call synergy. Right? Synergy. It's a word, I'm not the only one who uses it, obviously. Synergy means I can do more together than I can do separately, right? So if I asked you to move that cabinet out into the hall, how long would it take you? Could you do it even?
I don't know.
Yeah, not sure. Could I even do it? But if I said, Sarah, you can use your whole class to move those cabinets out in the hall, you think you can get it done? Yeah. Absolutely. Synergy means that we can do more together than we can do separately. Executive directors are those people that sort of look out and they love team building, they love teamwork. So if you're in a team sport and you love the idea that we can do more together than we do separately, how many team players do we have here today? How many football players? Any football players? Any baseball players, right? I can do more together. I was a coach. I loved coaching the offensive line. because they were 5 guys that were unknowns, they were humble, like I talked about before. But together, we had to work as a team, as a group, but together, if we worked as a group, we could do things that no one individual could do. That's what managers do, that's what directors do. They sort of try to get people working in collaborative teams, not just their own staff, but maybe throughout the community. And then they develop strategic plans, goals, visions, dreams, right? And then they do some fundraising. Who's in the band? All right, so you know what fundraising is about, right? Fundraising is what? Asking for money or trying to get money, right? That normally wouldn't come to you in other ways. Why does a nonprofit need money? Right? Back to our SPCA or Humane Society, because the people or the things we serve can't pay us. So we need to find money to do the work that we do, right? So we have to do some fundraising. All right, any questions to that? Let me talk a little bit about, and this is a piece that I left out before, so I apologize to your classes before. What does my job look like in that? Well, as I pointed out, I have to meet with the board once a month. Every month I have to communicate with that board, talk about what we're going to do to improve. We do 2 or 3 things throughout a year. We do a survey at the Y, it's called the SEER survey. We ask our members to grade us, so to say, ask them what we're doing well, what we need to improve, and then we take those ideas, those requests that our members have, we take them to the board and say which 1 or 2 that we want to do this year. And so the board guides that, directs that. They have a big picture. Where do we want you to focus, John? Collaborate with community partners. Talk to you about some of the community partners the Y partners with here in Bluffton. In Wells County, we partner with the Parks and Rec Department. We're proud to announce that between the Parks and Rec and the Y and the schools, Bluffton schools, we were able to be the first organization to bring in the Special Olympics to Wells County. So Wells County had never had a Special Olympics track meet before we got here and before we collaborated with those entities. And today we're excited to see. Last spring we were rained out, unfortunately, but we had 175 different athletes entered into that, and we're excited to see that happen. We collaborate with the library. We do teen activities together. We collaborate with Bluffton Regional Medical Center in educational programs in the health and wellness area. So we do a lot of different collaboration. That's my job to drive that. My job to look out and meet. The last 3 weeks I met with 15 community leaders. I try to do that every year. Meet with 15 or 20 of those leaders, and I ask them 3 questions. And I say, one question is, in your mind, in your thought, what's the toughest problem that we face in Wells County? And then 2, what are the resources we need if we're going to solve that problem, or make that problem better? And 3, who's already doing it? Because the why, I want to know, as the executive director, what the why can do, and between the board and I, then we decide, what are we going to do? What new program are we going to put this year that will make things better? Who are we going to collaborate with? How can we work together with partners? And then 3, who can we refer? There's things that the Y can't do. You saw all those nonprofits, right? We all have different work that we do, different work that we're passionate about. The Y is not passionate about everything. We're really not passionate about animals. But if you're passionate about animals, I know who to refer you to, right? We're not really passionate about or able to really talk about homelessness or mental health. But if you're needing mental health or you're needing some housing, we know who to refer you to. So that's what I talk about collaboration. That's the job of an executive director, trying to get that information and that big picture. So if you find yourself becoming a big picture person, you like the big picture rather than the details, you may find yourself in working as an executive director sometime in a nonprofit. Let me go forward here. Okay, there we go. Oops. How many times am I going to go forward now, possibly? Is it stuck there? There we go. There we go. All right, so what education do you need? What education do you need to become an executive director or a general manager of a nonprofit? Well, by and large, as I've said before, that most of us who are managing nonprofits have a bachelor's degree. How long does it take you to get a bachelor's degree, do you know? 2 years will get you an associate's degree. 4 years will get you a bachelor's degree. By and large, it took me 20 years to do it, but that's okay. I'm not kidding. I didn't go to school for 20 years, but I was 38 when I finally got my bachelor's degree. if you work with a specialized organization like ACLU, you saw the ACLU, we talked about the ACLU in this class, but the American Civil Liberties Union, who advocate or who represent legal cases, then you may need specialized education like in law. If you work with the mental health community and nonprofits, and many do, you may need some psychological training, a degree in psychology or an advanced degree. You may need your master's degree at least, maybe even a doctorate or an MD in the psychological field. And so the type of nonprofit you work for would determine that. But what I want to say this before the last point is this again. It's not so much the degree. So what I say to everyone is that there's so many of us that have come to our job from so many different points, from English degrees, from physical education degrees, from art history degrees, from history degrees like I had. We all get there, but we got there through certain, what I call serendipitous events. When I was a young man, when I was your age, I had one passion. I wanted to be a naval officer. You know, I wanted to ride the high seas. I wanted to wear the cool white uniform, salute people and be saluted. I wanted to go into exotic ports and see exotic worlds. I wanted to do all that. But the problem was I didn't want to be an engineer, is what the Navy wanted, and I didn't have 20/20 eyesight, which is also what the Navy wanted. So I ended up at another college. Well, I was in Chicago going to school when I was taking an archaeological class. Why I was taking an archaeology class, I have no idea, because I had no desire to be an archaeologist. And it was long before, what was that guy, Harrison Ford, that did all the Indiana Jones stuff, so I didn't know how cool it could have been if I was one. But anyhow, I'm in this archaeology class, and the professor comes in and he says, hey, don't be surprised if I call some of you tonight and ask you to come help fight a flood on the weekend. Well, I'm 19 years old, I'm got nothing to do, it's in the spring, I'm not playing football. What else do I do? I got nothing going on. In those days, you could go to the rental company, the car company, and be 19 years old and rent a car. So I go down to the local rental company and I say, I'd like to rent a car. And they said, where are you going? I said, Campsville, Illinois. They said, where's that? I said, I have no idea. Do you got a map? So they showed me a map. You remember, I don't know if anybody's seen a map? Anybody know? You know, like a physical paper map? You know, they have one. And they showed me, they routed it out for me. That's how you get there. So I go down there in the middle of Friday night. I take off from school in Chicago. I drive all the way downstate, follow this map. I get there and it's this little town in the middle of nowhere. And what they're trying to do is save their town, a few houses, and this archaeological dig at Northwestern University, trying to save all of that. And I show up, and I'm thinking, what am I going to tell the people? Well, I happen to be taking journalism classes. My thought was maybe I'll go into journalism at this point in time. So I said, well, I'll tell them I'm just here on a lark. I thought it was an adventure, right? But I tell them, you know, I'll just tell them I'm going to write about this experience and try to submit it to the paper. Well, when you tell someone you're a journalist, all of a sudden sort of doors open for you that didn't open before, right? All of a sudden, well, maybe they'll get their name in the paper or something. And so all of a sudden, I find out that they are going to treat me royally and actually put me in charge of something. I'm 19 years old. I don't know anything about fighting floods. I don't know anything about directing crews. I don't know anything about filling sandbags. And they gave me hip waders and pointed me in direction of the line of all the sandbags and said, now you're in charge of a crew, go fight the flood. So at 19-year-olds, I was braver than I was smart, still am today pretty much, and I just said, hey, we'll figure it out when we get down there. So I get down there, I start working with these incredible people who come from all over that part of the world, and they come for no other reason than just to help the people in Campsville, Illinois. I saw people who were suffering, devastated because they lost everything, walking in water out to my waist. You saw the pictures. I was in that kind of world. I was in a Harvey kind of world. It wasn't Houston, Texas, believe me, but it was that same idea. Flood was devastating. But it was that moment when I realized that working to help people might be something would be worthwhile doing for the rest of my life. I was in a fraternity where my fraternity brothers were going to be doctors, they were going to be lawyers, they were going to be business people, working for the Apples and the Googles and the Facebooks of the world, and they have gone on and done that, and they did wonderful things. But I had a different heart, I had a different passion. My gut was satisfied with different things. When I saw those people, something happened to me. And so maybe you're like that person. Maybe you're in this room today and you get touched when you see someone being bullied. Anybody like that? When you see someone being bullied, or you see someone hurting, you see an animal along the side of the road, your heart begins to squeeze, right? Your gut begins to churn. Something in you saying that's not right, something needs to be done about that. I'd like to help if I could. Anybody like that? Anybody here at this end of the day saying, yeah? if I could help someone, it would really make me satisfied. That's what I really like to do. That's how many of us found the nonprofit world. That's how many of us became teachers. We just had a passion for putting knowledge into people's head, changing their heart, making them passionate about something. We had no really drive or desire to be an engineer or a doctor, and that's all wonderful. Believe me, I hope that some of you end up there. But for some of you said, I have no idea what I'm going to do. I don't have anything that I want to do here, there. Who knows? Volunteer. That's what I would say to you, volunteer. The best way sometimes to find your career path is to serve sometimes for free. To do something that other people are getting paid for just to see if you enjoy doing it. For no better reason than just it was a good experience to have. And who knows what can come from that. But for me, it was simply volunteering that night, and it changed my life. Now, did I get right into the Y that day? Did I get right into ministry that day? No. But that was the tweak. That was the moment. All right? The degree took care of itself, and what I did then later on was okay. But what I'm saying to you and what we say about many of us, it's not the degree so much, it's the heart. And if your heart is touched, if you can feel passion for something, that's what you need to pursue. And you can become a great nonprofit manager. Oh, did I lock again? But you have a question.
Click the end of the pen.
Am I clicking that probably on and off?
There you go.
I am a tactile person. I talk a lot and move my hands a lot. Well, let's talk about some of the working conditions. Okay? In my job, I work in an office, pretty much. It's not unlike your school situation. Air-controlled, air-conditioned, well-lighted place, safe. But there are some downsides. There's long hours. All right? My day won't end, started about 7:30 today. It won't end until about 6 tonight. I've got more things I have to do here. A lot of days that I'm working 50 hours a week. Frequently on call. Weekends and evenings on call. What does that mean? Anybody know? Anybody on call? Yes, sir.
It means you are at home, but if you get a phone call, you gotta go.
Absolutely. Your name, sir?
Zach.
Zach. Absolutely right, Zach. I keep a phone. My company pays for the phone, so I gotta keep it with me. They may call me and I have to go. So if you're looking for a 9 to 5, if you're looking for somewhere where I can punch in and punch out, and the weekends are entirely mine, the evenings are entirely mine, I can forget about work, nonprofit work may not be the thing for you. If you're looking about something that touches your heart, maybe nonprofit is. Oftentimes there's generally lower pay for nonprofit. We don't make what Google engineers make, or what those folks who solve those incredible problems of the world mechanically make. But by and large, as I pointed out, that our pay scale and teachers' pay scales are about the same. And so teachers and high school administrators and school administrators have a similar thing to most CEOs or most plans or yeah, it's 8th period for me too, gang, sorry. Most organizational charts of a nonprofit make. So that means we can put food on the table. It means that we can pay for a house by and large. We're not going to retire rich, but we'll be able to retire. Sometimes we have limited resources. We don't get everything we need. We don't have everything we want. We lack things that we have to need to do the job, and we have to be okay with that. We have to leave needs met sometimes because we don't have all the resources we have. We didn't get enough funds in our fundraising, whatever that is, and that's frustrating. You have to live with that. And then we're volunteer dependent. Why might that be a challenge? Why might working with volunteers, even though I encourage you to volunteer, even though I think volunteers are great, why are managing volunteers sometimes a challenging thing to do? Yes, Zach.
It's unpredictable who will come.
Absolutely. You never know from time to time. Do I have people who know what they're doing who've shown up? Do I have people that don't know? We maintain, the Y maintains the Y, you know, we're the adopt a highway kind of thing, so we have the highway in front of the Y out to the brick house farms out there, so it's about a mile. And every time we're looking for volunteers, and sometimes I get great volunteers and sometimes I get Cub Scouts. Have you ever tried to get an 8th grader to pick up a highway? Very challenging, all right? Sometimes I get folks who are physically capable, and sometimes folks in wheelchairs actually want to help us on the highway, and I say, thank God for them, for their passion, but can they really do the job? So yeah, absolutely challenging. Any other reason working with volunteers can be challenging? Anybody back here in the back row? I think I got this kind of lady in the gray. I think she has an idea formulating in her head. Working with volunteers. Any ideas? No? I thought there was an idea there. I thought I saw one. Anybody else? You never know who you're going to get. Volunteers aren't committed. They've got other jobs, right? They've got other full-time jobs. They've got other things they have to do. Their time commitment is small. Their skill level is different. Working with volunteers can be challenging. And then you got unsolvable problems, right? The thing that drives you is to solve a problem. Then sometimes the problems are so big that you're never going to solve them, and you got to be okay with that. It's not like an engineering problem sometimes where I can figure the problem out, and manufacture the change, and be on to the next one. I'm always living with the problem, so to speak. Like the why, we always say we like to work on youth obesity. We like to improve youth obesity. We recognize we're never going to solve youth obesity. So we have to be okay with that. But if we can change the life of a few people, move it forward, we've got to be okay with that. And that's part of the downside of working in nonprofits. But there's upsides. You get to work at your passion, like I talked about. You get to work with great people that share your passion. I think that those of us who are nonprofits will say the best people we ever work with are the people that are working in our same field and working towards the same problems. We provide help and care that wouldn't otherwise be available. If we don't do it, who will, right? If we don't get involved, who's going to? If a nonprofit doesn't do it, then there's no profit in it. There's no money to be made in it. Who's going to do it? Somebody's got to do it. And if someone doesn't do it, then there's lack, there's want, there's disease, there's hurt, there's heartache, there's all kinds of things, even unto death, where things get lost and we can miss because we haven't involved ourselves in it. And for that reason, we can make a difference. We get to really feel that satisfaction in our hearts that we've done something unique with our lives. We've done something purposeful with our lives. It wasn't just about making money. It wasn't just about the dollar at the end of the day. It wasn't just about the vacation home or the extra boat or whatever it was. It was about making a difference in the world. I left it better than I found it. You know, I've moved 26 times. Lived in all kinds of different environments. I've lived in apartments and duplexes and owned my own house. This is the fourth one that I bought and about to sell. But the thing that always drives me, and if it drives you, and if you find yourself always wanting to improve something, you're always wanting to improve something. Either you're going to be a great engineer, or you might work in nonprofit. If you want to make something better, nonprofit work might be for you. You're always thinking, I can do better than that. I can make this better. I can organize that better. I can make this prettier. I can make this stronger. I can make this lighter. Whatever it is that do. You may be a great engineer because you've got this kind of analytical mind that's thinking, how do we improve these things? Or in the human side of it, you may be saying, I can work in a nonprofit. I can make a difference. I can make it better. That's a great benefit, a perk of working for the nonprofits. There are some material benefits that we have. I shouldn't say, you know, it's not that we're impoverished, a lot of us. I mean, we're not getting rich, but we're not impoverished. And there are some benefits that some nonprofits provide in retirement and medical care. Sometimes in providing housing for their members at the end of their lives or at the end of their careers. And then usually it's pretty safe. I just sort of threw that in for fun. You know, nothing's blowing up. No one's wanting to shoot me yet. But there are some, yeah, right. You may want to shoot me by the end of this. But some of us, though, who involve ourselves deeply into, let's say, war-torn areas, can be in those dangerous places. All right, let's talk about job prospects. This is a graph I took, and it only shows about 2012, 2013, but this in the red line is for-profit jobs and the blue line nonprofit jobs. And a huge precipitous drop in 2008. Anybody know why that would be? Yeah, exactly. The stock market crashes. We have the Great R, the Great Recession, the worst economic situation since the Great Depression, right? And so thousands, hundreds of thousands, if not millions of jobs are lost all over the United States in the profit sector, in manufacturing and service and a lot of the industries there. But look what's happening in the nonprofit sector, right? Movement upward. Jobs are being added. Why? Let's put our analytical mind on it for just a couple minutes. Why would nonprofit jobs tend to increase, especially, yes?
They aren't depending on something, it's more of everyone around.
That's great. They're not depending on a for-profit situation. So in other words, why would jobs in manufacturing be lost? Because I don't want to buy that thing anymore, right? Exactly. If you can't buy cars, then people that make the cars are gonna be without jobs. So the marketplace is dependent on people being the market, there being enough people in the market to buy your product. And so when that fluctuates, so the jobs in that market. So when we lose people to be able to buy the things we make, we lose the people that make the things we make, right? That's one of the reasons. What else? There's another key reason here, but that's a great one. One other reason. What happens to people who lose their jobs?
Unemployment.
Unemployment. What does that mean, though?
They get time.
Huh? What does it mean psychologically? What does that mean socially to someone who loses their job? Someone who is displaced from their work? What can it lead to? Drunkenness, alcoholism, addiction, homelessness, mental health issues, right? All those issues that nonprofits, by and large, focus on. So oftentimes when people are in crisis, are there more Red Cross workers when there's a hurricane or when there's not a hurricane? Sure, of course. When things are going bad in our world, oftentimes nonprofit happens. But what I like to see is this, and I believe this about your generation, that by and large, there's so many problems in our world that are unsolvable, that instead of running away from them, and I'm really encouraged about what I'm seeing in this demographic, is that more and more of us are trying to run to them. That instead of being cowards in our world, I'm seeing more and more heroes. And I know we talk about superheroes, I think that's the theme of the street fair isn't this year, you got your heroes, but a superhero is someone who runs to a problem and doesn't run away from it. That's what a superhero does. And he may not have, or she may not have great skills, just empathy. You know what empathy is? That's a great superhero skill, but you know what it is? Doesn't come with a cape, doesn't come with a mask, doesn't come with ability to morph into some bendy, fiery thing. What's empathy? It's the ability to feel the pain in another human being. That's a superhero skill. Empathy. The ability to feel your pain and then be willing to do something about it and not run away from it. Because by and large, we don't like pain, do we? Right? By and large, we'd rather not live with pain. But heroes say, okay, it's okay to feel pain, and I'm going to help you in the pain. And we're going to do something about that. And that takes courage. That's a hero. So if you're looking to be a hero in the world, in my eyes, one of the ways you do that is you say, where's the pain? Where's the hurt? How do I get involved? How do I do it? And I think that number tells me that more and more people are being and choosing to be heroic than they are to be powerful. And that's a good thing. In Indiana, about 250,000 people have a nonprofit job, and that includes education. Okay, when we talk about nonprofit, education is a nonprofit job. All right, it's not maybe nonprofit management, but it's a nonprofit job. And there are about 1 of 10 of us who are managers, so about 25,000 people do basically what I do each day for a living. And there are more jobs per capita in the Northeast and Midwest. And so here's our geography lesson for the day. Where is the Northeast? When I talk about the Northeast of Indiana or of the United States, where am I talking about? Who? Maine, New York. This is the smartest class. No one could answer those questions in their classes. So this is, I congratulate you, applaud you. This is the smartest. Yes, Maine, New York, New Hampshire, Vermont, Massachusetts, Delaware, Rhode Island, all those New England states, all those East Seaboard states, right? Why is there more nonprofit work there? And why would it be good to move there if you needed and wanted to work in a nonprofit? Well, human centers are there. New York, Boston, Washington, Philadelphia, all the major cities are there, of course. And then education. Education is huge there. And again, that's lumped in with the nonprofits. But there's a lot in the Midwest. You got large city spaces here, Chicago, Indianapolis, Columbus, Cleveland, those places. And there's need. The population is aging. There's more social problems oftentimes in there. And people are finding jobs there. But let's talk a little bit about other jobs. And when do I need to be finished here? 2:30?
We got 28, so they can get.
2:20. Okay, then I will just point them out. We won't talk much about them, but there's a lot of other jobs in the social service and the nonprofit realm, not just management, but being counselors. If you have a psychology degree, this could be something you do. Social service, maintenance. People who prepare, and I'm overseeing a lot of maintenance men now, keeping our HVAC systems, the heating ventilation, air conditioning systems, the plumbing, electrical, those type of things. Customer service, person who sits on the phone and answers your questions and tries to solve your problems. Logistics, people that make things go from one place to another. You're gathering a bunch of needs for those folks in Houston. Logistics are what gets them there. Truckers, pilots, people who can box things up, people who can figure out where things should go and how to label them, all those kinds of things. All those are the things that could be worked in nonprofit. So you don't need to be specified like you do in some other career paths. You can find a lot of work doing a lot of different things in the nonprofit world. And then lastly, in 2 minutes, how does English, and I haven't said this in your classes, Mrs. Tucker, but I'm going to say it again, English is an incredible language. We are so blessed to speak English. It's such a wonderful, creative language. Why? Because think of all the languages that have, what languages have come together to make English? How many languages do we find in English? Name a few. German, Latin, Greek, what else? Spanish, Hebrew, French. All those wonderful creative languages come together in the English language, and we can articulate our emotions. We can articulate visions and dreams. We can use English to create word vistas and pictures in ways that few languages can. And using that in the nonprofit world is so important because we're trying to tell people our story. We're trying to touch their hearts. And so to use language is so important. We can show them those cool videos like we had before, but at the end of the day, we got to talk to them. We got to have language. You got to write reports. You got to letters, right? All those things have to be done well, articulate. You got to use the right grammar, the right punctuation. Using the wrong grammar punctuation can totally mess up what you're trying to say, right? Confuse things. Media presentations like this, face-to-face meetings, public speaking. Those are the things that English can do, and then some. Not only in the nonprofit world, but in everything you do. Well, that's my presentation. Thanks for being such a great class at the end of the day. I appreciate it. It's great to be with you. And now,